Check. It's Amy from the NHS. I'm taking the action notes tonight.
Yep. Thanks, Amy. I was just going to say that.
That's okay. I'm just going to say my camera isn't working. I don't know what's going on with it. My internet's been really funny. So I'll keep it off. But it's just to say it's my first time sort of taking action notes. So if you can just try and make it sort of clear when I've taken action, just so I don't miss anything. Yeah.
Yeah. No problem. Just throughout the presentations, if there's any actions, take them. And then for this meeting, what I suggest is if everybody can go on mute for the partners updates and presentations, we'll work our way through the agenda, and then when we get to set agenda item 8, after the CLD input, what we'll do then is open the floor for questions. So even if you want to get yourself a bit of paper and a pen, rather than stopping and starting for every presentation and bloody questions, if people want to take note any questions that we've got throughout for any of the speakers or people updating, then we can open the floor for questions after agenda item 8, and then a person can come in and get a certain amount of time each to give questions, feedback to any of the partners there. So we'll try and flow through until agenda item 8 before we bring anybody in for questions. So if you're settled and get yourself a bit of pen, a bit of paper, we'll go with that now. And then if everybody just make sure they're on mute as well, that'll help for everybody when they're presenting. So if you can put yourself on mute, that would be great. So welcome to the first board meeting of 2022. Happy New Year if I've not seen you. So it's good to be back. Hopefully we'll get a good meeting tonight. NHS, obviously, Amy's going to take the action notes for this meeting. In terms of apologies, Catherine Carson at GBT, she's not going to make it tonight, so I'm going to do partner updates for her. And Ross, I don't know, is there any other apologies put in?
Yeah, I've got a few, Chair. I'll just run through them quickly for everyone's information. But Amy, I can send you a list of these if that would help, rather than you trying to note them down just now.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
So I've got apologies from Councillor McCulloch, and also Councillor Quigley was tentative, so if she doesn't appear, we'll submit her apologies. I've got apologies from Craig Campbell at Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, Emil Shepherd from NHS. I've got a tentative from Ray McLean. I'm not sure if Ray's here. I've got a lot of people on the screen. So if Ray's not here, we'll record her apologies as well. And apologies from Elizabeth Cummings at Busy Lizzie, and apologies from Dennis O'Keefe at Voice of the Elderly Forum. That's all, Chair.
Thanks, Ross. Thanks for putting that in, Alan. So Alan's just put in the chat for Police Scotland that the following link's a good way to make contact with community police officers as yourself. Alan will do a partners update anyway, so you'll see that in the chat. In terms of the action note, we're approving the previous action note, and items carried forward to the previous meeting will be covered under agenda item 6. So we'll get through them there, the ones that were missed. So agenda item 4 is community champion update. So I'll be quiet and I'll pass you on to Stephen now. So Stephen Llewellyn will give us an update.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just a couple of very brief things from myself in terms of the council. So I don't know if people seen last week or not, but the budget setting exercise took place with the council on Thursday morning, and it was agreed cross-party to set a council tax increase at 3%. Thereafter, then the different political parties put up their own budget proposals, and at the end, although the 3% was unanimously agreed at the start of that, each of the three parties had differences of opinions in terms of any additional budget that they were going to get and how they would spend that. And in terms of the cuts, there was some cuts had to be made. And you'll remember back to a previous community meeting where we gave the background and information to the budget setting process. So that took place on Thursday, and 3% was agreed. In addition, the council have also agreed a 3% rent increase for council, North Lanarkshire Council tenants. North Lanarkshire Council still have something like the 5th lowest rent across Scotland, or the 5th lowest average rent across Scotland, and continue to obviously try to minimise any increase. But I think we appreciate 3% increase without the rent, without the council tax. It's still difficult considering what's happening with fuel poverty and food poverty and everything that's going on just now. And in addition, the Scottish Government gave the council £532,000, just over £500,000, and a tenant hardship grant, and that opened up at the start of January, and that's for any tenant of any, whether it's council, whether it's housing associations, or whether it's private landlords. And this is people who went into rent arrears during the pandemic, and for the first time certainly in my career, this is actually a grant, it's not a loan, and people can actually make an application to the council for any arrears that have accrued during COVID, and obviously there's strict criteria, but that's not to be paid back. So 532,000 at the moment, we've paid out just under £300,000 just now. But as I say, it's not a loan, it's actually a grant for the first time ever, and it is helping to assist sustainability and people who stay in their houses. But just two things, as homeless presentations in North Lanarkshire have actually reduced. They've increased in some other councils, but in North Lanarkshire, homeless presentations continue to reduce. And overall, believe it or not, I spoke before, but antisocial levels have actually reduced. We anticipated they would increase because people are in the houses more, but with people getting out and about, then actual levels of antisocial within the household, I should say, has actually reduced. And the one final thing, Chair, is just to remind people, council elections are at the start of May, and just for people to remember that they're there, and obviously the different political parties will start what they normally do in terms of canvassing in the coming weeks. And that's pretty much me.
Thanks, Stephen. Nice and short and sweet. So if you've got any questions for Stephen, if you take note, and get them after point 8 when we open the floor to questions. So if you've got anything, take note of that, please. So we're going to do item 5 community partner update. So we've got Alan from the police coming in with a short presentation, I'm sure, and then if we've got anybody from the fire and NHS that want to give updates. So Alan, it's up to you.
Hi, Chair. Thanks very much. I don't know, Ross has got a presentation I think you're going to bring up, Ross, and then I can go into, this is a kind of specific presentation on about, I think I go on about Moto X every time I'm on, but I think it's probably quite an important one, given we've had a number of complaints up in shots with motocrossers. So yeah, Operation Moto X was a joint operation that was delivered by North Lanarkshire Council and Police Scotland just in July this year. It was reinvigorated. We had police motorbikes, however, it's very difficult to get police officers trained on motorbikes. So we gave a commitment to send 2 cops on a 2-week training course, along with investing in further equipment for them, and we managed to get the officers back out on the motorcycles. So from July, the kind of background being, you know, there was a rise in antisocial behaviour with off-road motorcycles, and you'll have seen that every meeting I come to, we do talk about it. Obviously, the dangers that not only the persons riding the motorbikes are facing, but actually the public more so. I mean, across the board, we've heard of dogs being knocked over and killed. We've had really tragic events in Wishaw where we had 2 young males killed in the road, and we also had another incident in Wishaw where somebody sustained a very serious head injury. And obviously the impact that has upon our communities, as you know, whenever we have any road accident, is pretty massive, and the ripple effect can be felt across the board. Just moving on then, Ross. So what we did was we introduced Operation Moto X. Myself, Ross and Matt and various others discussed how we can kind of focus down and try and give the kind of an understanding of the real impact across the board. And to do that, you generally need to show some sort of percentages and figures, and essentially that's what we did. So from July, we moved on and we conducted various different educational. Just moving on, Ross, sorry. Education kind of exercises with the local schools. Actually, any opportunity officers had to stop and speak with people in local parks. We actually were involved in numerous youth disorder issues around about, more so the Carbarns area, the Shotts Nature Park, as you'll remember, where we really had a really good impact on the issues that we were having up at Shotts Nature Park. The bikes have been used for missing person inquiries, generally high-risk missing person inquiries where we can cover a lot of ground, and they've had a real significant impact on being able to cover ground as opposed to spending a lot of time on foot covering ground, where they can quickly do it and then move on to other actions and priority actions. We've had numerous motorbikes seized. We've probably about 13 across the kind of Shotts area into Wishaw area. And as I said, it can't be understated the impact that these bikes are having actually just across the board in relation to numerous different types of crime. Moving on, Ross. So, as I said, we had to measure this project because we wanted to show the boards and the councillors and various other partners just the kind of impact that we're having within the kind of partnerships that we've formed. So during that kind of course of that period, apologies, I can't see the figures actually. Across the board, we measured the kind of exercise from July onwards. So we did 6 months before and 6 months after, up until December this year. And as you'll see in the kind of Wishaw, Shotts and Bellshill and Motherwell areas, with the 46.2% reduction of antisocial behaviour incidents on motorcycles, so reduced that by 158 incidents. And then across in the other kind of the northern corridor, we've seen a reduction of 170 incidents, which was a 57% reduction. Just moving on, Ross. So as you can see, huge reductions across the board. Sorry, just back one, Ross. Huge reductions across the board. These figures, and you know, sometimes it can be difficult using figures, but we felt that the 6 months before it and the 6 months during the course of the operation was probably the best way to put this. So basically, we had 640 incidents in the 6 months prior to the operation and 312, which was after the operation, which reduced it by 328 incidents across the board in Lanarkshire. Sorry, the north of Lanarkshire. Moving on, Ross. So this is the bit we come to where we kind of see where the kind of the problems are with the two-wheeled motorcycles. In January, we did see an increase in our incidents across the north of Lanarkshire, where in our area alone, in Shotts, kind of Wishaw, Motherwell and Bellshill area, we did have a 68% increase. Now, it's not massive numbers there, as you can see from the presentation. However, what we did see was we can't deploy officers in the snow and the ice, obviously on motorbikes, but what we can do is deploy them on quad bikes. Moving on, Ross. Essentially, what we're looking for, and actually the presentation to the board tonight is a bit of a proposal to see if the board will support Police Scotland, North Lanarkshire Council to continue this partnership, but actually thinking ahead, and given that we are seeing the incidents on the increase during the winter months, to see if there would be a proposal that we could look to fund 4 quad bikes for North Lanarkshire, which would be 2 in Wishaw, Shotts, Bellshill and Motherwell, and 2 in the northern corridor. The good and advantage that we will have is we will still have the motorbikes that's been funded for us, and we will still continue to deploy our officers on these motorbikes. But that's the commitment we're seeking from across all the 9 community boards through these presentations at the community board meetings. Moving on, Ross. And again, just to show the commitment will continue. I mean, we will not stop what we're doing. We will continue doing what we're doing with the 2 motorbikes. However, I do believe, given the vast reductions and thinking about the tragic events I talked about, you know, one of the incidents could have been a road death that we've stopped as a result of the preventative measures that's been taken, and that's been taken across the board using Stephen Llewellyn's team in housing and the antisocial investigators, you know, whereby we identify individuals who are using motorbikes, quad bikes within public parks, public areas. We not only charge them and take their vehicles from them, we actually then follow that up with a visit, often from the housing, depending on if they're a problematic tenant, and then we look at kind of warnings that can be issued. And obviously that's then recorded through disclosure to the antisocial investigators. So the commitment we'll have is we will be able to get more people trained up on motorbike use, i.e. quad bike use, because it's vastly less expensive. You need a 2-day course as opposed to a 2-week course. And the kit is, again, vastly expensive. It's something like £380 per piece of kit. For the clothing, as opposed to something like £1,300, which is a massive reduction in what it would cost. So therefore, we could have more officers trained in the use of the quad bikes, and actually we could open the quad bikes up for use at bigger events like festivals, events that the public are coming along to, and let them just see what the capability is that the officers are now using. Moving on, Ross. Again, I've talked about the benefits there, and I'll not go on about it. I genuinely have a bit of a passion about this to actually increase the assets that we have for use across the board, because I genuinely see that the reduction in the figures, the people that we've been able to help protect, the people who can go about their business, walk their dogs on a daily basis without the fear of quads or motorbikes kind of ripping up the fields and whatever. That capability could give us just a bit more of time for us to be spending in the areas that you need them. And I'll go into my kind of police update in a wee minute, because I know that you're still having problems. So, as much as we're having these reductions, we are still having problems, and that's something I think that I'm looking to get the commitment from the board on. Okay, Ross? And that's really it, folks. Just looking for commitment from the community board to shots to be part and parcel of this as we move on, to form that kind of partnership along with the officials within the council and the police. And actually moving on as well, I'd like for the community boards, if we get that agreement approval, that when I come to a community board meeting, that the community boards can actually make suggestions as to where you think we should be. And myself and Ross have discussed how that would look in the future, and I think it would be a really good idea for the local people to get involved in where we're deploying officers and our partnership efforts across the board. Okay, Ross? Chair, do you want me to go on with a very brief police update now?
Yeah, that'd be fine, Alan. Give us that. That'd be good. Okay,
so the kind of high hitters for us over the kind of past 6 weeks have been there's been a few complaints made through our councillor colleagues and MSPs in relation to kind of Turboffy Road. Again, quad bikes. So that's something that my officers are actually planning just now. They're going to get an action plan up in that area, and we will address that with the 2 motorbikes that we already have. You'll know that we had a fair few willful fire reasons within the kind of Allington area, and I can confirm that we have arrested a male for crimes within that area, and in fact for 4 crimes across the board, and he is now on remand. There's been a good few warrants executed across the board within the villages and shots, with 5 apprehension warrants in total. Youth disorder is causing us quite a bit of concern up in shots, and again, the officers are looking at another action plan separate to the quad bike issue, and they're looking at conducting kind of youth disorder patrols, additional patrols. What we'll do is we'll get the officers from shots to come up and support, Wishaw to come up and support the officers from shots, in and around Robert Street, Shots Centre, Curryside Avenue, Shield Gardens, and I can give you an update on where we are with that when we get back. Again, that partnership effort continues in shots in relation to housing warnings. Anybody that we find to be acting in a kind of disorderly manner, we do get in touch with our colleagues at housing, and we thereafter follow that up with a chap at the door by a housing officer, stroke antisocial investigator, or a police officer, and they are warned either in regards to their children's disorder issues or their own issues that they're having within an area. The speeding issue, I haven't forgotten about that. Our traffic department are on to the kind of village speeding issues that's been brought up. Actually, we've been to a few community council meetings whereby we understand where the speeding issues are, and we've now got the speed gun. We're actually getting more officers trained up in that. But more so, just recently, we did carry out some reassurance patrols on Benhar Road. So hopefully you've seen us out and about. We do have 2 brand new police officers who have actually worked previously in shots. So Amy Harvey and John Evans is your new community police officers in shots. So please take a note of their details, and please do get in touch with them, communicate with them, go into the office and see them. They're an excellent team, and I'm in no doubt that we'll see some really good results from them in the near future. And also, I know that there's some concern in relation to the prison and some of the issues that we have from the prison. So there is a massive volume of work comes from the prison, which used to sit with our community policing officer. I can confirm that I've now got a post, and we have a brand new PLO, Prison Liaison Officer, Robert Goldie, PC Robert Goldie, who will continue from Kenny Samuel. And I also have got to report that Kenny Samuel, who you'll all know, is retiring at the end of March, so he'll be leaving us, unfortunately. We've got some really sound knowledge leaving the room, but obviously I wish him all the best, and some of the really great things he's done up in Shots. So, and that's really it from me. Apologies, I've harped on long enough.
Oh, thanks for that, Alan. Thanks for the updates, and that project sounds really worthwhile. I'm sure folk will have a lot of questions, so keep questions about that for Alan at the end. Is there a possibility that that presentation could even be sent to members of the board to get a look at the chats and the work that's been done? Is that possible?
I'm happy to circulate after the meeting, Chair, if Inspector Holland gives us okay with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's absolutely fine to do that.
I think if we could circulate that so everybody can get a read at it, and then obviously following that, we can maybe then even get a vote board support put through to all members of the board, and everybody can get back to us on their thoughts.
That's fine. So, what I would maybe just say, Chair, is it is getting presented to all 9 community board. Shots is the first one of the cycle this time, so I would probably wait to share it after the community board cycle's completed, just so that everyone's getting information presented to them in the same manner the board have tonight from our police colleagues.
Aye, that's fine, as long as once it's been shared, once all the boards have seen the presentation, everybody can get the information, and from that then they can make a vote in terms of their support for it. And if you've got questions for it, just keep them to the end, and we can get them for Alan. So other partner updates, and I know you've raised your hand there, Stephen. Is it something important to come in with? Or can you wait?
Sorry, I know it's not about a question just now. It was really just to say to Alan and the board that the commitment continues to be there from housing in terms of resources, Alan. So anything resources you need in terms of joint visits and everything else, it was just to reaffirm that the resources and the commitment from the housing service and the council is there for antisocial investigators and housing advisors going out with the police. So it's just really to reiterate that, Chair, that's all.
So we'll get Andy for fire for updates.
Chair, I don't think we've got any of our Scottish Fire and Rescue colleagues tonight. However, I will follow up after the board meeting with there's been a change in personnel in the area. The board will probably be aware that Des Donnelly used to attend the meetings. Des has actually moved on to a promoted post. So we've got a new station commander that will be covering the Shots board meetings in the future. And I'll try and get an update from him that I can circulate with the board after the meeting.
Brilliant, thanks. NHS partner, do you want to come in at all, Amy?
No, we don't have anything to update on at the moment.
No problem. Van El, Jean, do you want to do any updates for Van El?
Yeah, I've got a few updates, Craig. First of all, I'd like to tell you all about the North Lanarkshire Community Lottery launch took place a fortnight ago. It's an exciting week of the lottery that raises money for good causes. So any group in the area, in voluntary group or sector group, that earns less than £1,000 is entitled to put in for some of this lottery money, and 60% of the money raised will go to good causes. We're promoting it. It's going to start on the 9th of March. Well, that's when the tickets go on sale, the 9th of March. The first draw will be on the 16th of April, and the top prize is £25,000. However, for that, you've got to get 6 numbers, and they've got to be in the same rotation as what they get drawn in, so it's going to be quite difficult. But there are other prizes of 2,250, 25, and then 3 extra tickets as well. So it's really going to be really exciting in this area. Was Andy at the launch? No? Well, I've got plenty more information about it. I can email it to you and give you the link, and you'll be able to go to the presentation that was done at the launch, and you'll find out all about it. But it's very exciting. The other thing I would like to bring up is the locality network events from Van El. We're going to start them again in April, and there'll be one in each town every 6 months. So just like to if you have any updates or anything like that, or anybody would like to come to one of the meetings and do a wee short presentation or anything, you're very, very welcome. I've got a lot of more updates as well, a lot about funding and stuff like that. But what I'm going to do, I've emailed them to Volunteering Matters. Voluntary, what is it again?
Community Matters.
Community Matters.
Community Matters. Aye, Community Matters. So I've emailed the updates there, so hopefully they'll get distributed to you as well, because there are too many to bring up the night. That's me, thank you.
Thanks for that, Jean. Even if you feel comfy, you can put the link into the chat bar for the community bingo. Community bingo. Lottery. So you can put that in there. If not,
Okay, I'll
that
do
can just
that.
be sent as a link and shared with everyone. So
No bother, that's fine.
thanks. So I think that's our kind of community partner updates. We'll move on to item 6, which is input from our local community groups. So this is some of the agenda items we've moved forward. I'll bring in now the first of this, which is complaint feedback from housing groups. So Ben Hard and Kip Road Group. I think it's Leslie that's going to put them in here.
Yeah,
And I know TS Housing are no longer a group coming part of the board, it's individual, so it'll just be yourself, Leslie, I'm sure.
so this was carried forward from the last meeting, as you said, Craig, and I'm going to give some feedback on the complaint that was submitted to North Lanarkshire Council with regards to town centre vision consultation and also for the town hub. And then Mary's going to feedback on the terms of reference complaint, because that was, part of the work before TS Housing left the board. So if I maybe start with the town centre vision one, I've tried to make this succinct, so I'll try and kind of present it clearly, just what the community groups, there's 4 community groups that submitted this complaint jointly, give a little bit of information about the complaint and concerns, and then a bit of the feedback from North Lanarkshire Council. So in terms of the town centre vision complaint, there were key parts to this complaint were around the fairness and equity in the consultation process, the quality and integrity of the consultation process, and the methods of consultation. So in terms of fairness and equity, stakeholders and the public were treated differently. This was what part of our complaint. The public were disadvantaged as they didn't have access to engage in verbal discussion in a number of respects due to them not having access to an online meeting. 60 houses planned as part of the town centre vision, and North Lanarkshire Council's projection of a new type of town centre, not the traditional town centre, was not shared with the public as part of the consultation. Community groups feel it's important to point out that a public meeting was arranged for the town hub consultation, but not for the town centre vision one. And North Lanarkshire Council's response to this aspect of the complaint is that the public did have opportunity to engage in verbal discussion if they phoned and called the lead officer. They are satisfied that the consultation exercise provided opportunity for the general public to engage in the process, albeit online. So moving on to the next section around quality and integrity of the consultation. The community groups feel there was a failure of the council to accurately record and report on information gathered within the consultation process. This includes misreporting information to the Policy and Strategy Committee regarding who received presentations, and misreporting and inconsistent analysis of the raw data from the consultation. North Lanarkshire Council's analysis of the data incorrectly informs a positive outcome in support of the town vision than that of the raw data. And the raw data supports a need for change, but not the council's vision. And this part of our complaint was backed up with information obtained from a Freedom of Information request detailing the raw data from the consultation. And North Lanarkshire Council grouped responses into 3 categories instead of 4, which presented a result of the majority of the public supporting North Lanarkshire Council's vision. So North Lanarkshire Council's response to the data analysis concerns is that they are satisfied that the approach taken was reasonable and that there's no prescribed standard that the council is required to follow when undertaking and reporting on consultations. And in terms of the methods of consultation, the community groups' concerns were that, and again we've consistently raised these with North Lanarkshire Council regarding the methodology used. While we recognise the restrictions in place due to COVID, which have resulted in processes not being the same as previously, we feel there's been missed opportunity to reach the wider public. North Lanarkshire Council misreported that the board had received an online presentation in November 2020. Methods such as a mail drop could have been adopted by the council to attract early engagement and contributions from seldom heard voices. The expectation from North Lanarkshire Council is that community groups will act as advocates, engaging with their neighbours on future proposed changes to the town centre vision and evidencing collated information back to council officers. And this is despite North Lanarkshire Council not involving the board or community groups in the consultation planning stages. North Lanarkshire Council have also failed to keep community groups, specifically the town subgroup, up to date with changes such as the adaptations to the Vix Park, which went to Policy and Strategy Committee. And they've also failed to give individual feedback to the public who participated in the consultation. And North Lanarkshire Council's response to this section is it's accepted that the freedom of information response contained an error regarding the board receiving a presentation in November 2020, but this presentation was given later at an online workshop. The large number of views to the online exhibition of the draft town vision proposals and a number of written responses leads them to conclude that the methodology was fit for purpose under the circumstances. It was accepted by North Lanarkshire Council that the concurrent town hub and town vision consultations created confusion. And further to the initial complaint points, we submitted a further complaint with regards to a conflict of interest with the complaints investigating officer having a role in the development of the town vision project. And North Lanarkshire's council response to this is that they are satisfied there was no conflict of interest and it was appropriate for this officer to deal with the complaint, and their role in the town vision programme did not preclude them from doing so. So North Lanarkshire Council have reminded us of our right to progress to the Scottish Public Services Ombudsman, which we have duly done. And that concludes the feedback for that complaint. We'll go on and feedback on the hub one now, Craig.
Yeah, thanks for that. Cheers.
Okay.
Is that yourself that's doing that?
Yeah, it's me that's doing that, and it's not quite as long here. So in terms
of, sorry, Leslie.
No, on you go, Craig.
Amy Gill just gave us feedback. She's, in terms of the actions for that, she's struggling to keep up with some of the points you're making. So if we need any information, you can get them.
Yeah, I don't think there's necessarily any actions at this point, but I can certainly share what I'm saying tonight because I've got it prepared. So I don't want anyone to be trying to note down something when there's so much detail. Okay, right, so in terms of the town hub, the two areas I highlighted in this complaint were around the online meeting event and the online survey. And the online public consultation meeting had no access for the public to verbally converse with council officers. The questions asked on the online survey were not fit for purpose. They focused on access to the predetermined site for the hub and did not ask anything which would shape the hub. And this was despite North Lanarkshire Council stating the purpose of the survey was to allow residents of Shotts and the surrounding area the opportunity to be actively involved in the decision-making process and allow you the opportunity to help shape the new hub within your town. The answers to the questions about transport links could have been found without asking the public, and in fact the public couldn't answer some of them as they may never have travelled to Calderhead. The consultation was flawed. Shotts had no choice in where the hub would be placed. There was no opportunity to consider a community hub in a primary school instead of a town hub in a high school. And we also submitted a complaint regarding the conflict of interest with the complaints investigation officer who was the overseeing officer for the hub process. And in terms of North Lanarkshire Council's response to this, there will be different levels of public briefing, engagement and consultation as we go forward with the town hub process over a significant time frame. The online meeting event format has been considered to have been effective and productive, and attendees had the opportunity to mail any questions following the event to the town hub mailbox. The decision for the site of Shotts Town Hub was agreed as part of the Policy and Strategy Committee in October 2020 and not part of this consultation event. and information was gathered on active travel, public transport to direct where improvements could be made. They did agree and acknowledge that survey questions focused on the accessibility of Calderhead High School site, but North Lanarkshire Council feel it was clear that this was indeed the purpose of the survey, and the community hub is not being considered for shots as there are no new build schools in the pipeline. And that concludes the feedback on the town hub complaint. Mary, are you going to come in with the next section?
Yeah, but I want to actually just, well, I'll put my hand down. I want to just go back. I don't know if I missed you saying it or not when we were talking about the way in which the town vision consultation was handled. And I know you said about there wasn't any opportunity for verbal discussion with council officers, but the freedom of, so apologise if you did say this and I've missed it, but the freedom of information request that we got back identified that there were online meetings with housing developers, housing associations, constituted groups if they so requested it, and shop and retail owners, and they were afforded verbal discussion via online meetings, whereby the general public were restricted to the online consultation survey questionnaire, and that was a big issue regarding that. The other thing that I wanted to come in on was, as we know at the time, there was a lot of upset and distress, and TS Housing did contact the councillors to make councillors aware of this, which they already knew because it was on the Facebook page. And on 2 occasions by email, we requested a meeting, albeit it would be online, for constituents. Constituents did want a meeting with councillors. We didn't hear anything back. We also sent a special delivery letter with copies of both emails, again outlining constituents' wish for a meeting, and again we received no feedback from that. I don't know if anybody else has got any questions they want to ask about the town hub or the town vision, or...
Well, if anybody can take note on any questions, if they've got any, that would be great. And if you want to go into your feedback in terms of reference, Mary.
So the terms of reference, as we know, has been quite a contentious issue right from the outset. Again, this was the 4 same groups that took this complaint forward. The complaint fell into 2 categories. One was the approval of the terms of reference, and the second one that we wanted to address within it was the community board conflicts / community board dynamics. So that they were the two areas of investigation. From the outset, the complaint was treated as a stage 2 complaint. So I just want to just speak about the stage 2 complaint. According to the council's complaints handling procedure, the investigating officer must contact and clarify the points of the complaint and what the complainee expects from the complaint outcome. Our correspondence to the council outlined that procedure was in place, and also said that the complaint letter was not the full details of the complaint, and that we requested to have a meeting to discuss the complaint. But rather than get the meeting, or rather than getting any contact whatsoever, we were issued with a final complaint letter directing us to the Scottish Ombudsman. In effect, we were denied the opportunity to discuss 2 reports, one stating that, and these are from senior members of the council, one to the Policy and Strategy Committee, which saying that the Community Board had approved the terms of reference, and the other one to the Community Empowerment Committee, stating, and this was actually a report by the investigating officer to the Community Empowerment Committee, and it stated it was agreed that all comments received on feedback on the terms of reference will be fed back to future community board meetings and amendments agreed by the board. So there's two words, approved and agreed, which merits a vote to be taken. As we know, and confirmed by a further freedom of information, the board was not involved in agreeing any comments or amendments, and there was no vote for the terms of reference. Comments were never discussed in a manner to involve the board, but rather statements were issued with the impression that discussion would follow at a later date, because comments were invited in, but that discussion never came. We were also denied the opportunity to discuss an email received by John Duffy, who's here tonight, who's a member of TS Housing, and that was on the 24th of May, which was actually on the day of a community board meeting. And Ross, this email was actually sent from yourself. John had raised concerns about the terms of reference, and we had received a final copy which had not been approved by the board. The email said the voting rights are lifted from the board terms of reference, and this is still in draft form, adding that you believed the terms of reference were on the agenda that night and you would make any required changes following board discussion. So, as we know, there was no discussion. We were denied that opportunity. We were told we could get a meeting to discuss it, but that never happened. But then the meeting would have been fruitless, because what we were told was that the terms of reference had been previously agreed by the North Lanarkshire Committee and the Joint Partnership Committee. And again, these are other pieces of information that we've collated along the way. And that goes back as far as 2019 and the Policy and Strategy Committee in 2020. So despite these things, nothing ever came of it. So basically what we were told, that we'd had opportunity to discuss it. However, discussion is different from agreement and approval as recorded in the two reports. Basically the feedback we got was everything had been carried out appropriately. The complaint also stated the board had opportunity to discuss the terms of reference, and any concerns raised were taken into consideration and amendments made as appropriate, while ensuring that from the council's perspective, that those required for safeguarding and governance measures remained in place for influencing or making recommendations linked to council decisions or resources. And it also went on to say, this is outcome of the complaint, it must be reiterated that the voting procedures approved by the Policy and Strategy Committee required to remain in place as part of the wider terms of reference document for assurance and governance, where there is the potential for use to make recommendation or influence council resources. So our question to that, which we haven't asked anywhere, but our question to that is, so the community board is now actually responsible for the council's governance, when in fact we have councillors and council officers in place who know the risks associated with all these types of decisions, but this is getting cascaded down without any discussion. We too all submitted a complaint about a conflict of interest. The investigating officer was also involved in the development of the community board and in the compilation of the terms of reference document, and also for mishandling the stage 2 complaint procedure. The outcome was everything had been handled appropriately. The council had no concerns. However, the investigating, please try and follow me here, the investigating officer who investigated the complaint of the original mishandling then went on to do the exact same thing with the stage 2 complaint, did not contact the groups, clarify points of concerns or what their expected outcomes may be. And we have submitted a complaint about that, and we have we're waiting to hear back from that. What we have also noticed is going back to something that Leslie raised, is the inaccurate reporting of information to committees. Everything always seems to read well. There's not been anything about the conflicts, the dynamics at this board being reported back to committee, or none that we have read. The terms of reference, there's nothing about a complaint being submitted, and we feel that this is misleading. It's misleading the councillors. There's been a written and a verbal response given at these meetings, and unfortunately Councillor Quigley isn't here, but she approved the paper, the actual one where we had submitted the complaint, and that was omitted. She actually approved that paper. So going back, we feel that these things do need redressed, and councillors must get accurate information. And the council has had 3 opportunities to do that, to do this with the terms of reference. And our suggestion would be that the chair writes to committees. That's me. Other than saying inconsistent messaging, which has been prevalent throughout. So that's what the groups would like to see as an outcome, that this community board is in a position to accurately give councillors feedback on what's happening.
Right. What to take in?
I know.
But
I've got it here, I can send it, Craig.
I think I'll speak to you. But thanks for that update anyway, Mary.
Well, we are looking for some feedback. We're wanting the chair to write to committee.
Yep. Aye. No, I'll speak to you. I'll get an update on that. Louise, thanks for messaging as well. So the next point on kind of community funding streams, Louise.
Craig, sorry, can I just come back in, and this might come up later anyway, but I'm just thinking about a possible action point from the Town Vision kind of feedback is that perhaps it's time for another subgroup meeting. I don't know if that might come up later on in the agenda, but that would be my suggestion, was that there's a Town Vision
subgroup meeting. Yeah, you can put that in as an action.
Because it was suspended at the point that we put the complaints in, because it wasn't appropriate to have another meeting while the complaint was outstanding.
Yep.
And could we have it in as an action point as well then, Craig, about the chair writing to committee that's going to be discussed?
Yep.
Yeah, I've got note of both those things. Thank you.
Thank you.
So these, you're going to move that action, carry that forward.
Yeah, I don't mind carrying that forward to the next meeting where I'll be able to give a more comprehensive update.
That's no problem at all, thanks. So we'll move on then to update. I think it's yourself again, Leslie, in terms of Alton Primary, but as well, Ross, I don't know who's gone first here in the Alton Primary update.
Chair, or Leslie can just come in. It was just I'd pop both our names down. This again was, we raised it at the previous board meeting in November, just covering the Alton Primary information about the decant and things. But I know that Leslie, not as part of the group, but Leslie as herself, which is why it's just her name on the agenda, I think had a further update and some information around that. So it was just really just to have that on the agenda to bring it in. So I'm happy for Leslie just to speak about that.
I had raised some concerns at the last community board meeting as a parent and a resident, and it was just to sort of let the board know that I went forward. I had put in a freedom of information request, and I kind of mentioned that at the last time to try and get a bit more information about the inspection process for schools, but I also had some outstanding concerns about the communication of the decant to parents, and then some concerns about the length of the school day and how it had been reduced as a result of the decant. So I actually took that forward at the start of the year as a complaint, because I did mail the council in the middle of December and didn't receive I'd asked for a meeting, which wasn't set up, and we got into the new year. So I did put in a complaint so that I knew I was guaranteed a response in a timely manner. And it went to one of the education managers for investigation. And actually, it's had a really positive outcome. So I think it's nice to share that it was very quickly dealt with, and the aspect of my complaint around the length of the teaching day was upheld, and very quickly there was a plan in place to fix that. The teachers were being used as escorts on the buses for the children travelling from Allington Primary to the decant school, and that was then reducing the length of time that the kids were in class. So the investigating officer, as I say, recognised that immediately, and they've now got other arrangements in place, which is a kind of win-win for the kids as well. So I also had a meeting with that investigating officer and another person from Education and Families, where I was able to explore a bit more about my concerns around the communication between North Lanarkshire Council and parents, and together we agreed a sort of action plan for that as well, to improve the information that was coming out via the there's a specific page on the website for Allington parents for frequently asked questions, and they were going to make an amendment to that information to reflect information that's available in a committee report elsewhere on North Lanarkshire Council website. So I did feel really listened to during that complaint investigation, and agreed action points I was happy with. There was a disappointment from me, right enough, that none of the councillors came forward to support me when I had raised this at the last community board meeting, and also I copied one of the councillors into the email that I sent off with the complaint. And I do think that it's a shame that it took a parent to actually highlight the teaching time that the children were missing. Had this situation continued, the children were going to miss 36 hours of teaching time across the decant. So, I'm disappointed with the lack of response and involvement from the councillors. There's still one outstanding part to my concerns, which again is back to the inspection procedures and how the situation arose that the children had to be decanted so quickly. Education and Families were not in a position to be able to answer the questions I had around that. So I have taken those questions to Asset and Procurement, and I'm waiting for a response and hopefully an opportunity to have a discussion about that. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Leslie. And just finally then, I'll give a wee update on one of the funds and one of the projects that we've been running. So a wee update here. If I want to put this slide up, Ross. I've got a wee slide here. It's just to give you a wee bit of visuals. It's not a presentation or anything. It's just to discuss in terms of this project. But what it's done is linked into some of the local priorities for improving the environment and transport, but it's also tackling issues of antisocial behaviour and things like youth unemployment. So following COP26 in Glasgow, some funding had been awarded, so there's loads of funding came out of that, but Pass for All, Scotland's walking charity, and do a lot of things around sustainable transport and active travel. They had a COP Legacy Fund, which was to support any projects that would link active travel, tie it into the environmental agenda. So the work we had been doing already with Calderhead High School is working with pupils Monday to Thursday. There was a group through the Youth Work and Education Recovery project we're doing, coming down to the school to learn bike mechanics and repairing bikes. It's quite a group of boys that maybe not as necessarily engaged in the academic side of school, but they enjoyed the kind of bike mechanics, and it got to the point where actually building school to come into the container. So they really had to think about a way to channel their kind of enthusiasm for the cycling programme and put it in a structured way. So one of our mechanics that came through the Kickstart programme, Kieran, he went on a 6-month placement raise, and he was a young person from Calderhead. This fund allowed us to keep Kieran on for another year. and take the lead on a project where he, as a young person, would support other young people. Kieran got his bike mechanic qualification just before it started, and he's been doing things like customer repairs. But he's taking the lead in this now. So Monday to Thursday, the guys still come down, and they're learning all the skills needed for gaining their Velotech qualification, which is a industry standard qualification in bike maintenance. And the end of this week, they'll accept their Velotech bronze qualification. So it'll give them a mechanic qualification, and these are guys that are going to probably not get many qualifications at school. We know through working with them in the relationship built that they're kind of engaged in suppose antisocial behaviour. We know the areas that they hang about, the nature part, we know the activities that they tend to get up to. So being able to support them with something like this has been brilliant. And the way we're tying it into other things is North Lanarkshire Council on a Friday have changed their school curriculum. They now do Future Fridays, so they're finishing at 12:30. What we noticed was the uptake in people attending school, as you'd assume it would be, is terrible. People choosing personal development over going out with their friends at the weekend is pretty low. And these guys in particular are the ones that are going out at the weekend to go and have a drink and stuff. They're open about that too. So the fact that they are choosing now as an optional to stay at the school on a Friday and do bike repair work on the school's fleet, which we're going to use as part of the PE curriculum. And we're looking at having an active travel hub up at Calderhead on a Friday where people for the community can loan bikes for Calderhead, and also rather than come to GBT, you could go to Calderhead to get your bike repaired. So it's tying all that links between Future Fridays and having an environmental impact as well, because the bikes that we're working on are all refurbs that are donated or for the tip. So we're reducing single-use bikes and getting those bikes repaired and then increasing active travel. And again, it's having a really good impact on the youth employment side of things and antisocial behaviour. So that's just a project that I thought it's been very successful, and we're kind of getting it up and running now. So if anybody wants to meet with the young people, and kind of any involvement whatsoever, then feel free. But it was just a nice wee positive update on that in terms of about the priorities we're working to the environmental issues and transport issues in the area, particularly supporting people in antisocial behaviour and youth unemployment. So feel free if you've got any questions or want to contact me, you can as well. So moving on for that, it's just local news and updates. So just an opportunity for people to share local news and updating their work. This is where I'll be able to bring in people like Salisbury, Harthill, Allerton, Hartwood, if anybody's want to come in. What I'll do is I'll give an update for GBT for Catherine at this point, so I'll just keep talking, if that's all right. I'll just give Catherine's update here because she sent me a list of stuff she'd like to update us on. It's been happening at GBT. So in terms of updates, the period poverty project that we're working on. So thanks to 10 grand of funding secured through North Lanarkshire Council, we're working both the adult team and the cycle programme to deliver a pilot which is delivering free sanitary products using electric bikes in the local area. This is helping with green recovery as well as supporting the initiative to reduce period poverty, which I think is absolutely fantastic. The fact that we're getting, it's not even means tested, it's free and it's to anyone. You'll see it in the buses and stuff now as well. The advertisement for this, so if you go online to the Free Period Dignity, we're registered as a hub, so you know that you can come to GBT to pick up sanitary products. And if you're on our Facebook, and there'll be posters around in the local area, QR code on as well that you can scan, and that will allow you to put an order in, and that order will be to deliver them in electric bikes as well. So we've got a team of volunteers who are delivering the sanitary products as you need electric bikes, and that applies out to Harthill, Salisbury and everything as well. So that they're all included in this area for the e-bike deliveries. So we've delivered 46 households, reaching 2 females in the 4 weeks, and as well as our sanitary products, still continuing to deliver meals using our cargo bike and electric bike, averaging about 18 to 20 households a week, about 100 meal deliveries a week, which is good. So really try to integrate active travel and electric transport where we can in the local communities and try to achieve priorities. Home heating advice Scotland, you might have seen that advertised recently, but we've secured as a referral source home heating advice fund. I can send you a link to that if you need it. I'll put it in there. This came through the Scottish Government and there was 3 million available to Scottish residents in debt with the utilities who are struggling to keep up with their payments. We're only into our 2nd week of this, and we've been concentrating on making referrals for existing clients who meet the criteria. But it's open, so you'll see that from our Facebook, or I'll send you the link to that. To date, we've successfully secured just over £9,000 for 14 households. The fund will now be advertised now to the wider community. So if you know anybody in debt who's struggling, get them to contact the adult team at Getting Better Together. The fund's only open till the end of March, but we know that if it's successful, the Scottish Government have another 1 million to invest. So we're a small team, so those applying for need to be patient, but we'll work to ensure that those who are referred in will be processed for the fund ending. The other update she gave me is on the STV Children in Need and the Aberlour Fund. We've been awarded small fund of 2,000 for Children in Need. Fund criteria is extremely flexible, but to date we've been offering clients ASDA food vouchers to those struggling with food poverty. Coupled with applications to the Aberlour Fund, we're helping those to secure household items such as clothing that will benefit the children. So we're working closely with colleagues across the teams to make sure that families are being supported through that fund. There's an update in our afternoon teas as well. Tea service is now back up and running as normal from the limited numbers of 15 per session, a capacity of 21 each Tuesday and Thursday. And currently we've got availability as well, so if anyone wanting to attend, they should contact the adult team. So that's for our elderly adult high teas availability there. Peter Kelly as well for the co-op joined our afternoon teas and supplied biscuits and chatted to all our clients, and that was in Time to Talk Day on the 3rd of February. So thanks for that, Peter. Thanks for the support for that. Group work, just updating some of the group activities. The men's shed is now back up and running. We're keen to get community members with skills to repair and restore household items. So if that's you, or if you know anybody, we're now running 2-tier system. So if you've got to join in, and if you even if it's a company, they can do so, and that's at Spring Hill Hall. Various games as well, such as pool, table tennis, so a big kind of environment for people. And that basically has proved invaluable clients for the locality. The art and sewing group as well is commencing this week, and they will operate on a 6-weekly programme where a specific item will be created, and there'll be an upfront cost of £20 for the 6-week copy of that programme. Updating clients, she's put the adult team are working with 289 clients with referrals coming in continually. Community development, Catherine and Maureen are still working closely supporting groups through the localities, funding for the area. I'm sure we'll get a link in for Hardhill and Salisbury, but we supported Salisbury to host the Halloween and Christmas events through getting funding for the consortium. Salisbury crochet group have provided lots of items, including shawls for older adults, baby wear. That's been distributed to residents with children under 5 in need of knitwear. We're actually cracking all the wee stuff that they've knitted. If anyone knows and the benefit for that type of stuff, then they've packed as well. There's been other updates in the consortium supporting Hardhill Baby Bears group to their balance bikes so they can deliver their own play on pedal sessions and outdoor play. Upskilling in terms of the training needed to deliver these sessions. And group are also supporting event for the children. So we're strongly linked into the services of BBT now with that Baby Bears in Hardhill. And we're also working with the YMCA in Wishaw to replicate some of the work that's been available in Shorts. Photography club. Internal doors, so thanks to colleagues at North Lanarkshire Council, we received 50 internal doors from Mears for distribution to residents. So people needing doors, due to transport issues, we've no taking stock of them, but as soon as Mears can deliver, be able to get them advertised and arranged for delivery and collection. If anyone needs to make an inquiry, then just contact Catherine. And then recently we just had our visit from Anna Sauer on the 15th of February, visited to speak to staff and attendees and at our coffee morning. He was interested about the work that's been done locally and what we have to plan to support the community in the future. Quite a lot of updates there, quite a lot of work happening, things starting to get back in the go, so it's been good to hear and be involved in. So if there's anybody for other partner areas, Hart House, Salisbury, that wants to give an update, that'd be great. I don't see your hand up, Marlene, so I'll let you jump in.
Thank you, Craig. I've come in with two different things, the Community Council and the Hague, not the Hague, and the Village Hall. We've started up bingo every fortnight, and it's getting the old folk out, other people out, and it's been really encouraging to see people come along. Community Council were really pleased for the Christmas tree switch on and the lights. We got help from the Hague who deal with the wind farm money because otherwise we wouldn't have had lights, etc. And we're working along with John, see John over there, John Walker, because I think he's maybe going to say something. Yeah, because last year we were supposed to have a VE celebration, but this year we're going to have one for the Queen's Jubilee, and the whole village, all the organisations are all working together, and it's great community engagement. But probably John will want to give you an update on that. But the mugger is being used, not so much just now, but it was really well used during the summer. It's great. We just need more stuff in the public park now. So thank you.
Thanks, Marlene. No, that's brilliant. Does anybody else want to come in for other communities? I see, Leslie, you put in the chat about the Community Climate Action Plan. I don't know if you want to give a wee update on that rather than me. Obviously, you've been involved and enjoying it, so.
I can just update on the kind of previous workshop there that I attended. So the Keep Scotland Beautiful had offered a series of workshops for people that were interested across different areas, looking at opportunities and ideas that might contribute into a local climate action plan. And the most recent workshop was just for shots area. So there was not that many of us there, Craig. There maybe like 5 or so, I think, maybe representatives from shots. But we had a really interesting evening. It was a long session, but they had it sectioned off really nicely, different sort of topics, and looking at our ideas as well as kind of tried and tested opportunities from before. And we started prioritising things into sort of red, amber and green for the shots area. And there's a further session this Thursday evening. It's open for anyone to attend, so we would be delighted if anyone would like to come on board with that. It's online, the meeting. I think it's at 7, Craig, till 8:30 on Thursday. Yep.
7 o'clock to 8:30, and then we'll post it again. The environment group for Facebook, and that will post it again as well, inviting everybody to attend, and they can get for joining and stuff.
There's still an opportunity for the public to complete the survey. There was a survey about how the public find the environment in shots at the moment, and this will help us on the group to sort of tailor what we put within the action plan. And I think there's only been 15 responses, but the survey's still open, and the link for it's been advertised on the Facebook page if anybody wants to access that.
I'm sure it was all the stuff for that initially was circulated with all the board members, so you should have it. If not, we can get it sent to everybody again. We'll probably do that with Thursday night session as well, so if anybody is interested, they can get involved.
I hope that was accurate, Craig.
I know, it was good. I enjoyed it. But is there anybody else want to give any updates in the community? John?
Yeah, thanks for that. You hear me okay? Hello there.
Hi, I've got 4 points that I just want to share with you. We've got the outside war memorial, the dedication ceremony for the memorial, street party. We've got a community project. I think somebody's mic's on. I'm getting feedback.
John, you're unmuted. If you can mute yourself, John.
Sorry?
John Duffy. Mute. That's it. We're all good.
All right. Just I was 3 seconds behind myself there, and I was getting confused. Anyway, there's community projects. It's 3 groups in the village. It's Village Tidy and Green Spaces, and we've also got one future project that I just want to keep you up to speed with. In 2015, we started a discussion with North Lanarkshire Council and the possibility of an outside war memorial that was accessible to everybody. And finally, in 2020, the war memorial was started and completed with between 40 to 50,000 funding through North Lanarkshire Council, which was excellent. As part of the completion, we started the fundraising to celebrate the 75th anniversary of VE Day, Victory in Europe Day. Unfortunately, we were pretty well organised, but unfortunately COVID arrived, so we had to cancel it. We sort of rescheduled it for 2021, and COVID was still there, so we had to cancel it again. So here we are this year. Hopefully, on the 3rd of June, we're going to have a dedication ceremony for the war memorial. We're hoping to get some military there and do a bit of a show just to get it dedicated. We've also got 19 names that are missing for the war memorial that we've identified over the past few years. So we're hoping to get them added on before too long. And then on the 4th of June, we're holding a street party for the Queen's Jubilee. It's Hathill, Eastfield and Greenrig. I know Greenrig's part of West Lothian, but it's part of the village as well. The entertainment for the adults and children is going to be paid for through fundraising that we've done in the past and in the future. So the day will be virtually free for the village from 11 o'clock to 4 o'clock. We've got a few acts booked. We had a couple of bands that pulled out at the last minute because I think there's quite a lot going on at that weekend. The 3 groups, Tidy and Green Space, the 3 groups applied for funding, but for similar uses and equipment. So we will share the resources in the village of the 3 groups and the assets. The total award was just under £12,000 that we got across the 3 groups. The groups are the War Memorial, obviously, for the community garden. The Youth Club is grass cutting and hedge trimming. And the Village Hall / Marley's groups are grass cutting and little litter picking, plus planting for all. We're going to buy some seeds and do a fair bit of planting. The community garden has been agreed and funded in principle by North Lanarkshire Council. It would be 6 raised beds with excellent wheelchair access, wide enough for 2 wheelchairs to pass one another throughout. We would create a tranquil seating area. Hopefully the villagers would come along and just reflect, chat with friends, or maybe just sit and enjoy the fresh air. The seating area, the War Memorial north of the village and the seating area south of the village will provide tranquil areas at both sides of the village, because Hathill is a bit of a split village because of the main road that runs right through the middle of it. People in the north can't go to the south, people in the south can't go to the north. It's just seen as one of these natural barriers that seem to pop up from time to time. The future programme is a community shed in the village. We've got a lot of skills in the village that are board staff, so we're going to try and get a community shed off the ground. And also maybe a repair shop, share the tools and assets for the other 3 groups. And somebody would need to control the equipment. So we were looking at long-term, maybe doing a lend lease to members of the public, where people can't always afford a grass cutter or, a hedge trimmer or whatever. So they could borrow it and either give a donation or we would charge if they were driving a Range Rover. It's a charge them a few quid. But anyway, that's the four projects that that we've been running and looking forward to maybe doing the next two. So it's been exciting times, and we thank North Lanarkshire Council for the funding. It's been excellent, and we've really had a lot of help from individuals in North Lanarkshire Council to achieve what we've achieved so far and what we're going to achieve. Thank you.
Thanks for that, John. Oh, it sounds great. Looking forward to see what it comes there. Aye. I know you had your hand up, Frank. You want to come in? I don't know if Frank's still there, right? No. John, Joe, you want to come in now then?
On behalf of the semi-action group, I'd like to thank the Service Department for getting the road on track. It was a nice sort of full of support, and I'm been on it for the last year and a half. They have now got it all resurfaced, which is a bonus for the people, and they're highly delighted with it. Also, outside is the car park, and they couldn't do that because they don't know the rules of the ground. But they're in the process of finding out who owns it, and hopefully that will be resurfaced in the near future. Also, on behalf of TS House, I'd have to thank Robert Skimmon and his team for doing the top end of both the road, getting it resurfaced. They've done a fantastic job, and the residents of there came to myself and Mary and thanked us for the work getting done on it. Again, this is a great benefit to the people. Also, I would like to ask Police Scotland, the people from Lanarkshire have been trying to get in contact with you for the big that's coming up in 2 or 3 weeks' time. And Mr. Mackay from Lanarkshire had been trying for the last 3 or 4 weeks to get a response for you, and he hasn't had any. I asked Councillor Stephen to look into it for us, and I think he's been in contact with you. Can you tell us an update as to what's happened? Thank you.
Sorry, did you catch that, Angle?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, you want a quick update just now on that?
Aye, if you go for an update on that now, aye, because if you give me a quick update on that now, we're going to move on. We're going to open the floor anyway after CLD. So, if you just have a quick update, if you can.
John, just obviously there's a lot of chat in the background going on about this one. I spoke to the councillor about it. I've actually asked Sergeant Wishaw to be in touch with Bonaccord as well. There will be something put together for that particular event, just given some of the concerns that the club and some of the local people are raising. So please leave that with me, and I'll look into that further, and I'll make a decision on what kind of policing response, if any, we should have at that event.
Thanks, Al. So we'll move on then to the final update for the CLD input. There's a kind of short presentation for CLD. And can I just ask if everybody makes sure they're on mute through anybody's questions or presentations? So who would it be, Leanne, or that? Who's in first? Is there anybody for CLD?
Yeah, we've got Liz Fergus. Sorry, Liz. We've got Liz Fergus and David Young. Liz, are you kicking off?
Liz, is it your turn?
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. Just in terms of introductions, I'm Liz Fergus and I'm the Service Manager for Community Learning and Development and Resources in North Lanarkshire Council. And my colleague is also here, David Young, who is one of the Service Managers for Learning and Improvement, which also takes in the work around our secondary schools in relation to our homeschool partnership officers. We're also members of the broader CLD partnership, and it's more about the partnership that we were keen to establish a link with the town boards, and just want to update you on the plan, around the CLD partnership. So I'll kind of do a couple of slides, and David will then talk you through some of that kind of practical stuff, and hopefully we won't take up too much of your time here. And apologies for a lot of the text on the slides. We were just keen to give members as much information as possible and a bit of background, and hopefully, you know, kind of at the end, we're happy to take any questions. So really just to focus on the CLD kind of learning and development plan, and as David has highlighted there through the slides, this plan will run from 21 to 24. And if you're okay, I'll just give you a wee bit of background. I'm sure many of the board members come into contact with community learning and development, both within the council and across in partnership with the voluntary sector. And CLD is about working to improve outcomes for young people, children, adults, families, and build stronger communities. Our work in the council is focused around working with young people through our youth work, and includes things like our accreditation, Duke of Edinburgh, our youth forum, support to mental health and wellbeing, which has been a huge part of our recovery work, and working with vulnerable young people in terms of mental health, wellbeing, and a number of issues linked to employability. There's a whole broad range of work there within our youth work. Within our adult learning team, we have a huge focus on digital inclusion, and I know that that links in with some of the board's LOIP priorities. We've also established strong links now with our resettlement work in terms of adult learning and looking at English as second another language, and our young adult programme, where we've been looking at supporting young people furthest away from the labour market to get the skills required for work and for further education, and our family learning team, which is about making sure that we support our families and parents to get the best out of and support their children in terms of their learning and development, and our work in relation to our learning improvement, where we have an improvement agenda, and also we work with support to our homeschool partnership officers. And as I said earlier, that's the work that David manages. And we have kind of strong links as well with the kind of work that our community partnership team do. And we have a strong partnership here at North Lanarkshire. Our CLD partnership just now is currently chaired by a representative from New College Lanarkshire, a vice chair from Roots to Work. I'm the other vice chair, and we have members from a range of council departments and NHS Lanarkshire and Banel. So we have a kind of broad partnership approach to our work in North Lanarkshire, because we really kind of believe that in terms of improving outcomes for our young people, our children, our families, our adults, our communities, partnership is the kind of key to make sure that there's a continuum of support. Want to put the next slide up, Dave? I think you've got this slide. And as I said, you know, kind of we have had a partnership in North Lanarkshire in various guises for a long time. However, this work has recently been strengthened through the CLD regulations, which now places a duty on local authorities to produce a CLD plan every 3 years. And we've had 2 plans since the new legislation, and that we're about to, we've now got our plan for 2021 to 24. Our plan is subject to scrutiny from the HMIE, similar to HMIE that go into schools. We also receive inspections about how well we're working together in terms of our community. And you know, we have a number of subgroups within our plan to make connections to local communities. And I suppose the kind of key reason that we were really keen to bring our kind of the content of our plan to the boards is to kind of make sure that we are kind of joined up, and that we recognise the huge infrastructure around our 9 boards in terms of taking the work of communities forward, and strong links with the local outcome improvement plans. So we used to have a CLD locality partnership across the 6 localities, and moving forward we would be saying that We wouldn't want to have that because we feel as if that would be a duplication of the boards. Therefore, what we would be seeing is that whilst we would have a strategic partnership for community learning and development, the work that everyone has outlined here tonight kind of chimes with the work that we would be doing in a partnership. So it would be a waste of resources and it would be a duplication. So we would be keen that there was a stronger link with our CLD partnership and our 9 town boards. I'll pass you over to my colleague David, who's going to just give a couple of examples of the work that we've been involved in through the partnership. Thanks.
Thanks, Liz.
Sorry, Liz, just trying to get off mute there and trying to find where the button was. Okay. So examples of work within the shots area, the kind of wider shots area, we've heard tonight of a whole load of great examples of work, and a lot of them are community learning and development. So although we talked about the work that the council does, so within our team, for instance, we have a youth work team in shots, and one of our members of staff, Robert, is here tonight within the group, and work goes on within shots and Salisbury and Harthill, and some of the other work that Liz mentioned about adult learning. Again, we have based within shots and Harthill specifically. We have computer suites based within those buildings. So you'll know yourself about a lot of the work that goes on there and in the schools that Liz had kind of touched on. So we do have an HSPO, which is a homeschool partnership officer based in Calderhead High School. We have CLD worker schools who work quite closely with a couple of the primary schools, Stain Primary in particular. Get a lot of support from us. So we know about a lot of the individual pieces of work that we do. We know about the individual pieces of work that our colleagues in libraries and other providers in the area do. But part of the kind of point, I suppose, of the partnership is that it's greater than the sum of its parts. So when we come together as a partnership, we're able to deliver things that we're not able to do individually within our own teams or our own organisations. So just a couple of examples of these. One of them was Digital Inclusion North Lanarkshire. So that was a project that was established probably going back about 4 years now, where we realised that a lot of different organisations, some of them represented here tonight, were providing digital inclusion programmes, computing for beginners and such like, but doing them all slightly differently, advertising them slightly differently, training staff slightly differently. So why not bring them together and have one project where it can be combined, one website, one way to try and kind of determine whether learners had achieved or passed what they were trying to do. And that really gave us something to kind of work together on as a partnership, and led to a lot of positive outcomes for the learners that we worked with. Also, the other example on that page there, celebrating learning and achievement. We know that not all organisations have the ability to be able to have events or kind of points in the year where they can get people together to celebrate achievement. But again, as a partnership, we're able to do that. So annually, before COVID, I have to say, but annually we were able to do that, to bring people together across North Lanarkshire, to have evenings where we celebrate achievement, we kind of share success. We were able to kind of play videos and kind of show photos and testimonials about what folk have done. And we also do that more regularly through newsletters that the partnership produces as well, both online and in hard copy as well. So those are just some examples of the pieces of work that the partnership has done over and above the individual organisations. Sorry, my mute's going off there. Just moving on to the plan that Liz had mentioned. We have produced a plan every 3 years, and this is the latest iteration of the plan, so it's 2021 to 2024. That plan has been written in collaboration with the wide range of partners that we mentioned there, to make sure that it covers quite a lot of bases, but also talking to our learners as well and getting feedback from them about their needs and their wants. And that will continue throughout the life of the plan. So it's an ever-changing plan. It should be a working document that we can go back to and change. So we're not going to go through the whole plan. We have got copies of the plan there and a link to it. If that hasn't been sent out already, we can certainly get that sent out with the minutes of this meeting. But just talking about a few key things there, that the plan does talk about developing core skills for all learners, regardless of what age they are. such as literacy, numeracy, ESOL, which is English for speakers of other languages, and digital inclusion, as Liz mentioned. We do want to reduce the poverty and inequality-related attainment gap. And as we mentioned there, we want to celebrate achievement. We want to improve health, wellbeing and safety, and we want to engage with individuals and communities to make sure that those needs I was talking about are met throughout the life of the plan. There's a lot of cross-cutting themes in there as well that underpin a lot of that work right across the board. And what we've said right there at the very end is that we don't want to duplicate other plans. So in the past, we were maybe kind of guilty of trying to cram too much into some of these plans every 3 years when we wrote them. But we do have good plans there in place already in terms of our work with young people, adult learning, family learning, and our work with the community and voluntary sector. So within our plan, it's basically a portfolio of those other plans where you can click on a link and get the details for that. Okay. And finally, just a wee word on community engagement. As we've said there, it's key within the plan as we move forward. We need to make sure that we continue to engage with learners and with groups like yourself, with forums, learner forums, the community boards, etc. So we want to make sure that there's links in place to be able to do that. We're keen to build those partnerships, and part of our point today is to try and make sure that we chat about how that might go in the future, certainly over the next couple of years, and get your ideas on that. But it could include a whole load of other links there as well. So it could be about specific focus groups to look at specific pieces of work, surveys, evaluations, etc. So we're open to kind of look at how we can expand some of that across the partnership over the next 3 years. And just finally, one of the examples of a current survey that we're doing just now, as we said earlier on, we do a lot of work around digital inclusion and computing. We have computing suites in a lot of our libraries and community centres. So we're keen at the moment to ask learners about how they want to see that progress in the future. How are they going to be using those computers over the next 5, 10, 15 years? What do they see the needs being? So we've got that out as a live survey just now. And again, if it's useful, we can share that either in the chat bar of this meeting, or we can get that out to the rest of the group. Okay, so I'll just end that PowerPoint. Liz, I'll pass back to you just to finish that off.
Yeah, I just, you know, I know that, I don't know, Chair, if you want us to take questions just now, or do you just want to go through all the questions for the night and we'll come back in if you've got any specific questions for us?
Yeah, that's what we'll do. So we're kind of finishing up now with all the partner updates and stuff, presentations. So what we'll do is we'll open the floor to questions. So if anybody's got questions for you, they can submit them. But no, thanks for that. That was good. What we'll do is we'll make sure everybody gets a copy of that for the plan related. So what we'll do, I will open the floor now to some questions. I'm obviously conscious of time a wee bit, but if anybody has got stuff they want to come in with to ask any of the people who've presented or updated, then if you can raise your hand. John, Joe, I know you've got your hand raised. So if you want to back down for anything. John Duffy, could you unmute yourself unless you're going to raise your hand? You keep going on mute and unmute. Aye, Leslie, so if you want to come in with some questions you've got for Andy.
It's just a really quick one for Alan. The police, it's just about where the police are based. Am I right in thinking, I heard a rumour that they're based at Calderhead High now? Is that accurate, or?
There's community officers who are funded by education. There's only 2 in Wishaw that are funded throughout my area, certainly. So certainly for the Shotts and Allington area, I am not aware of any community police officers who are attached to our campus officers, rather.
Okay, thank you.
We obviously we go into schools, and we will go into schools as and when required. So
it was just when I met with the education officers around the Allington decant, I had asked a question about why Calderhead wasn't considered as a decant location, and one of the officers had said that the police were using some of the space at Calderhead High. So I was just wanting to clarify with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Leslie. Mary, you've got your hand raised if you want to come in.
It was actually a question for Stephen, but has he went? Hi.
Oh, I'm still here, Mary.
Oh, you're there, Stephen. Right. I sent you an email the 10th of February, but it was going back to our meeting at Spring Hill Hall. And as an example, when we were talking about infrastructure, I had said about Spring Hill Farm and about the 350 houses not in the development plan. Now that's went through its own complaints procedure. That's now away at the Scottish Ombudsman. But at that time we raised it in terms of the infrastructure, and you said that you were going to speak with the head of planning, and I just wondered if you had any feedback in that.
Well, I don't actually have any direct feedback, Mary. My understanding was from that they were corresponding direct, and because it's now went further in obviously the complaints process from a council, both yourself and Leslie outlined earlier, the council are saying that the complaints process for a number of things has now been exhausted, and that the next stage is to go to the Scottish Ombudsman. Then my understanding coming back from planning is that they were letting that run. I am happy again to catch up with Pamela Humphreys to get a further update for her to come back to you, either her or Lorna Bowden. I know they've been in contact before, and I know that the issues you raised that day with myself and Leanne and Ross. But again, I'm happy, which we did do before, I'm happy to chase up Pamela again.
Although the complaint has went through the process, it doesn't remove the issue of the infrastructure, and that was what I was impressing at the time of Spring Hill Hall. We have actually requested a meeting, not to do with that, but we haven't heard back. But although the complaints process has been exhausted, the issue of infrastructure doesn't die a death with that.
And in terms of requesting a meeting, I'm happy to take that. I'm happy for it to be an action, and I'll take it back to the head of planning, who's Pamela.
Oh, I think I copied you into that one actually, didn't I? Aye. Right. Okay, thanks.
Thanks for that, Stephen. Ray, do you want to come in with any questions?
Yeah, I want to ask a question about schools and all areas of schooling. When will normal services resume in terms of parents' nights, children being able to have school parties, etc., as normal part of the normal school curriculum? As far as I understand, these things are not happening yet. The children who started school 2 years ago almost are unable to fill their parents in with what's happened with their education. Very difficult to get anybody on the telephone to fill them in where their children's education are at. Do they need any support? Whatever is missed. When will these things resume normally?
Chair, if that can be recorded as an action, I'll pick it up after the meeting and try and get a response for that.
Now, as far as I'm aware, most other councils, these things are happening. I want to know why it's not happening in North Lanarkshire, and in particular roundabout shots.
Chair, can I just very briefly come in as well? I'm not aware, Ray, that it's happening in other councils. The council, North Lanarkshire Council, all other 32 authorities across Scotland will comply in full what's happening just now in terms of Scottish Government, the guidance. There's massive changes coming, I don't think there's any doubt on that. And these things, I think, will start, but every day we're obviously waiting on announcements coming from the Scottish Government, which is wholly different from what's happening down south just now. But we will comply with the regulations that are imposed. But the information we're getting is that a lot of these things will start being lifted. And even these kind of meetings hopefully in the future will not be virtual. We'll be sitting up in a community hall somewhere. But at the moment, Ross is taking it as an action, but my understanding across Scotland is that it's not happening. My son's a teacher in Falkirk, and I can tell you 100% their meetings are still virtual just now. But like all councils, they're looking to move away from virtual, but we're waiting on that, the changes coming through in terms of all sorts of stuff. You've seen masks are now no longer going to have to be worn in classrooms, I believe. So there's a lot of things happening, and I think you'll see it will move really, really quickly in the coming weeks and months.
I hope so. It's very needed, very needed. We're all adults here and can cope with this, but 5-year-olds can't go home and tell their parents what's missing.
Yeah, agreed. I think we're all agreed on that, definitely.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Stephen. So I think we've got to take that forward as an action note then, Ross, for the meeting. Where was it there? Mary, could you pop your hand in there? Sorry, I'm a bit confused with that. Louise, do you want to come in?
Oh, thank you, Craig. Stephen, just to follow on from the point that Mary raised a few moments ago about requesting a meeting with Pamela Humphreys and Spring Hill Farm, I'm chairing the housing subgroup for the community board. I just wondered if it would be possible to invite Lorna Bowden along to either the same meeting or organise another meeting, again to talk about the Spring Hill Farm development, if that's okay.
Louise, could I say the email went to Lorna? It was Lorna it went to.
I'm not sure if Ross is already picking that up, Louise, but from my point of view, I don't see any reason why an invitation can't be extended. I don't see why not.
Thank you.
Just as a quick update, the emails went to both Lorna Bowden and the Head of Plan and Regeneration. They've been in touch just clarifying what the remit of the subgroup is, the group, and what the question, and I've given them update on what the housing subgroup is, and they're going to respond directly to the email. I think it might have been Mary that sent it, and I was copied into yourself, Mary.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks for that. So has anybody else got any other questions or feedback for partners? Mary?
I'm just trying to understand your message because I'd asked about the minutes being approved.
Oh, the action notes,
Aye, the action note, because
Aye.
I've got two things that I was wanting to
the
ask.
action note of the previous meeting.
Is
What
now
would you like to-
appropriate? No?
Aye, you can ask.
Right. Item 7 is participatory budgeting. At a meeting that we had a few weeks ago with Ross and Maureen, it was said that participatory budgeting might not happen. But according to the action note, they're looking for expressions of interest for that group. So I was just wondering what the update was to that.
Is this the green space participatory budget?
No, just participatory budgeting per se. That was what
I'll
was
update
said that.
Yeah. Do you want
Alright,
I'll update it
okay.
under item
Right.
10.
Right, and the other bit that I wanted to say was item 8, board development sessions, and it says that 2 members left, and that was attributed to the terms of reference. It was a community group that left, and the reasons for leaving were much wider than the terms of reference. So I would like that minuted so that there's not any misunderstanding about that. Thanks.
Yep. So could you take note of that, Amy Dale?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. That all then, Mary? Anything else? That all? Aye. Is everybody any other updates on that? No. Move on then. There was no petitions received for this board cycle. So we'll move on to agenda item 10, standing items. So Ross is going to give us an update on local development programme and the lights as well. So I'll pass you on to Ross.
Thanks, Chair. So run very quickly through the local development programme report. It was circulated with all the board papers. Hopefully everyone's still a little chance to have a look through it. So just before I run through the projects and update you, I'll just point out the recommendations in the report are that the Community Board acknowledge the progress with the remaining projects, including Appendix 1, approve any projects with potential for delivery in future financial years, depending on availability of the budget and community support, recognise the capital budget allocated to each community board area, approve amendments to existing projects and other project proposals, and agree that further progress on current proposed projects is reported to future meetings of the Community Board. So I'll just run through, if it's okay, Chair, just where we are with all the projects on the list. And again, I know that this has come after the question time, so happy to take any questions after this. So I'll just run through it in order in Appendix 1. So these are the carryover projects. The work around Shot Stain Garden is just about complete. We've installed a series of brass rubbing posts. We've installed 3 lectern stands. We're just waiting on some signage that's being delivered that will highlight local wildlife and things in the area. And we've also carried out quite a lot of work to narrow entrances to Stain Garden to try and deter the use of quad bikes on the site. So that's been carried out so far up at the factories, at the 2 entrances and down at Mans Road football pitch. Local information we have is that it's had an immediate impact. One resident said that they reckoned that the nuisance factor has went down by about 80%. However, we are going back in over the next few weeks to try and carry out additional works to further deter antisocial behaviour and the misuse of off-road vehicles in that area. And we'll be carrying that out with our in-house team. And I think, as Inspector Mulholland mentioned earlier, the police are also working alongside us to maybe try and carry out a sort of deterrence in that area as well to try and prevent that. So we're hoping that that combined might make Staying Garden a bit more of a pleasant place for people to go for a walk around. Salisbury Heritage Project, we're progressing that just now with the Community Council. I know that Frank from Salisbury was on earlier. I think he's had connection issues, so maybe we'll be able to give a fuller update on that in the next board meeting. Shotts Curryside Avenue, again, our in-house teams are still under work restrictions on the distances they can work for their manual handling. So although that project's still on the list there, we're currently looking at alternative methods to deliver that so that we can actually bring it forward, because just now the council teams that could deliver it are facing quite an extensive backlog, as I'm sure you can imagine, following COVID. So we're looking at alternative delivery methods to complete the play area there. And then the other one, Shotts Mugger, Salisbury Wheel Sports Area, Hartham Hill Mugger are all jobs that are complete. And Hart Hill Scooter Track, the contractors expressed a preference just due to the disruption to go on the site. So we're liaising with the work sort of the first few weeks in July there. That's quite a short contract. And then just moving on to Appendix 2. So the first project we have, I'll just cover the projects that are actually live this year. Baton Road parking, so we've got the contractor instructed. I think works may have started up there, but we're looking at works being completed at Baton Road by the end of March, hopefully. The community safety and CCTV, we've put in extensive CCTV this year, so we've installed CCTV in Shotts, we've installed it in Hart Hill. To specific issues that we're also currently completing the feasibility for installation in both Eastfield and in Salisbury, and the deployment of CCTV again will be intelligence led, both from colleagues in the police and from the community, and where possible we'll fund the deployment of cameras so that we can actually improve community safety issues at a local level. Hartwood Play Area, again there's still land issues surrounding that site, but we are looking try and get some legal agreement to be able to proceed with that project just now. And there's a few projects on here just looking for either to notify you or for approval. So the first one is community partnership initiatives. So as part of the recent Community Empowerment Committee report, each community board's been asked to look at funding to support community partner initiatives. This can be a range of things. In the past it's been changing padlocks for wheelie bins or different initiatives that we've carried out in local areas that affect local people there, and this would be specific for the Shotts board area. Belmont Drive parking, the works have already been completed up there. That was to remark the car park due to local parking issues, and actually on the back of that we're also carrying out some work to lower the curbs at the back of the Orange Hall. John Joe pointed them out to me when we were out in a walkabout in Shotts. So there's 3 curbs there where the footpaths were upgraded, but they didn't lower curbs for access. So the 3 of them are also going to be lowered as well. And again, that will be done before the end of March. And I've got a couple of projects here that are looking for approval. First one is Salisbury for feature lighting, and that's to install lighting at the village entrance features and the War Memorial. At Hartwood Play Area, residents have asked for us to consider an additional item of play equipment more suitable for older children. That play area's got quite a young age demographic. And Lagan Path in Shotts, we've been asked to look at the potential to improve the parking around the Lagan Path area. So that's 3 projects we've got there that are seeking approval. And the only other one I've got to update on the LDP list, Chair, is Hart Hill War Memorial. We have instructed a stonemason to look at adding the additional names, John, and also adding additional regiments and colouring the existing regiment names that are silver instead of red. The only way we can feasibly see to do it is probably to take the panels off and add the names into the spaces that are there. We wouldn't be able to read panels, but we are looking to have all of those names added as soon as possible, but certainly I've said the deadline's sort of May to have that done in time for the dedication service at the start of June. So hopefully that kind of meets your approval. And all I would ask of the board, Chair, is that the other 3 projects on there are, if we have got approval in principle, all that will happen is then we would take them forward at the appropriate time to investigate the feasibility and look at future delivery. That's it, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks for that, Ross. Has anybody got any questions? Firstly, Mary, would you like to come in?
I think maybe we should give feedback in the green bit that saga might almost be at an end. You want me to speak to it, Ross, or?
What's that, sorry, Mary?
Saying, I think we should give feedback that the Tarbothy Green bit, that saga may well be at an end.
It
might be at an end.
Yep, well, just there too, so I was just really covering because we're coming up to year end. Yep, Tarbothy Road and Shotts is on the LDP list and under Appendix 2 for project ideas to be developed in conjunction with local community groups. So we're currently speaking to groups that could be interested in establishing some form of community garden, community growing area, sort of community space on that site. And if we can get agreement from the groups and from all the relevant parties, we'll be looking to support groups to take that forward. That won't be happening this financial year, obviously, because we're mid-February just now, so we won't be able to deliver a project by the end of March. But we'd certainly, if we have agreements in place, be looking to progress that as soon as we can in the new financial year.
Could I just come in there, Craig?
Yep.
Right. Just to say, we had a meeting with Ross and Maureen, and they said to us that there was a group interested in doing something. So obviously, for people that know the background to this, we were coming through perspective. Tarbothy didn't have anything NLC maintained, and that was where we were going with that. But obviously, if a group has came in and expressing an interest, well, we don't have any right to stand in the way of that, and we were keen to support that. However, then what happened was it was made known that any group at a stage apparently come into it, and at this stage it would need to be a group that was established and could take things forward, and they had a track record. Now, all along, it has always been that if there were 4 people in Tarbothy expressed an interest in taking forward a group, and we did the survey, as we know, and we were waiting to have the meeting with the council, and that goalpost changed from supporting people in the local community surrounding the Tarbothy bit to it had to be an established group with a track record, and then there was a 6-line deadline date on it. So that hasn't went down very well. It's sounding and feeling as though the people who did come forward in Tarbothy, who may have been prepared to do something, have actually just been brushed aside because another group has came forward and expressed an interest. And the other part of that is feasibility studies have been carried out, which I assume is based on the survey that we did, and we don't even know the outcomes of that. We weren't even involved in it. So it's just to make people aware of what's happened. We're happy that there's a group prepared to come in. We acknowledge, we think we're right in our perspective, our thinking that, Ross, you are trying to maintain the green bit for the community. We do believe that, but there just seems to have been this bit at the end that's just added more bad feeling to a situation that already had bad feeling. I don't know if you want to
Can I just respond very quickly to that, Chair? Absolutely, Mary. I think just for clarity for the wider board, this project's on the LDP list following the submission of an LDP proposal form from TS Housing and another community group. That community group was named as one of the contacts to take this project forward. That community group still want to be involved in taking this project forward. They're an established group, so there was no issue with them being established, constituted and having a track record when the initial proposal went in. So no goalposts have changed. The same group's still involved. I appreciate that yourself, Mary, and your group have wanted to step back, but we still have a named person from the original application wanting to be involved in the project. So the goalposts from my side haven't changed because we always had.
We weren't stepping back, but there were other people to be considered, and there was a second level consultation to be done. And that's all just been put by the side.
No, that's a discussion away from here because of.
I know. I know. I don't want us to deliberate on it either because we've had the discussion. I just want it made known. And I also contacted Councillor Stevenson on the day of all the emails that were flying about, and I received no response. So I'm happy not to see any more.
Okay, so I think then, Chair, it's really just if the 3 projects seeking approval, they can be approved in principle.
Yep. So the 3 projects then seeking approval in principle. Now, has anybody got any objections to these 3 projects? We're happy to approve these. The Salisbury feature lighting, the Hartwood play area, and the project for parking at Wagon Path. Does anybody get any comments or want to come in with on that? That's fine then, Ross. I think we'll be happy to approve them in principle. If you get any updates, is it on the lights?
I'll give you a very quick update, Chair. I noticed, I think Nana McLean's maybe got her hand up on my screen. I don't know if that's to come in on the previous item.
Oh, you're on the. Yep. Nana, do you want to come in? Nana?
I can continue, Chair, if you want. Anna can come in after.
You continue and I'll send her a wee message.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. I'm on an iPad and I've never done it before, so I do apologise. I was on the other previous item because I'm a resident in Trerbothy, and that green space is just round about where I live that you were discussing. And one of the main reasons why I attend the meetings at all, that's why I started coming to the meetings, because you were looking at that. So this other group that are coming in then, well, obviously we don't know who it is, but will we find out what the proposals are? How will we know? I'm new to all this, so excuse me if I'm asking stupid questions, but how will I find out, or how will I know what the proposal is by that group, what it is they're intending to do, what it is they want to take forward?
No, it's not a silly question at all, Nana. No, for a project to go ahead, it doesn't matter who the group is. When we initially engage with any group, we'll be saying to them that they have to carry out local consultation. The group will have to do that themselves. They'll have to engage involved at whatever level they would like to, and people will be able to ask any groups that want to take things forward questions directly. So it isn't a case of a project will just go ahead. This will just be the first step of more consultation happening on exactly what's going to happen on that site.
And will that then come back to this forum once that consultation has been done? Will that, because my concern is that I might not be aware of that consultation, because it's very difficult to engage with the community. Not everybody's digitally, able to go in, go on things like this. So I don't know how they're going to approach the local residents. So that's my concern, is if I don't see anything, if I don't hear about it, if I'm not aware of it, will it come back to this group? The outcomes, will they come back to this group and be discussed further before it's approved?
Yeah.
I think Ross is frozen.
I absolutely appreciate it. The consultation, well, it wouldn't actually be. The consultation would actually be done on sort of a door-to-door basis, and it'll be done face-to-face by people consulting in the local area. So it's not the board that would be consulting on this. It would be actually any groups that want to take a project forward. So at this point, the community board have approved the spend for the project. The community board wouldn't, and they don't have any further project involvement at an operational level. Any consultation carried out now will be done at a local level around Trerbothy, around field and everything. So you'll absolutely be made area.
Okay, sorry, you broke up a wee bit, so I'm not quite sure. I understood what you're saying. They will do the consultation. You've approved the funding. They're going to consult and the outcome to that consultation, that doesn't go any further than them. They just sort of say, well, okay, everybody said this is how we're going to go with it. It doesn't come back for us to discuss at this this level. Did I get that right?
Craig, I'm happy to come in if
Yes.
Ross is still breaking up. Oh, you're back, Ross. Sorry.
Sorry, everyone keeps spinning on my screen. I've usually got a connection.
Ross, you're breaking
yes,
up. I'm happy
no,
to
no.
clarify if you're.
If you just come in, Leanne.
Yeah. So I think what Ross is saying is that while the funding's approved through, in principle, through the community board, the engagement and consultation happens much more at that kind of grassroots on the ground level. So local residents who live near the area would be consulted in terms of any impact on them, and the local community groups and organisations that are will be involved in delivery will do consultation and engagement with the wider community. So what we're saying is that what would probably come back to the community board would be if the outcome of that consultation impacted significantly on delivery of the project. Other than that, what would come back to the community board would just be updates on delivery of the project. So ultimately the consultation engagement will happen at that much more local level. It doesn't necessarily need to come back to the board to allow the project to progress, but it would the outcome would come back if it was going to significantly impact on the delivery of the project. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, yeah. So they will then, once they've done the consultation, it will be that group that will come back and let the community know what the outcome was and what the decision's been, and they'll just then progress with it.
They'll just progress with it, and we'll just have updates at the community board as we do on all of the projects.
Right, that's fine. That's lovely. Thanks very much for that.
Thanks, Leanne. So is anybody else, before we just finish up, we'll move on to the last bits. Any other questions? Ross, or that? Louise?
Oh, Craig, can I just, are we on the any other business agenda item, or have we not got there yet?
No, we've not got any other business yet. We're just finishing up with the local development programme.
No
Ross
worries.
is broken, so I don't know if he'll be able to.
I can hear okay, Chair. I'll maybe leave my camera off because I think that's maybe what's causing my issues.
It seems a lot better now.
I'll
give us an update on Lloyd's quickly then, and then Louise, if you want to come in.
Yeah, just very, very quickly, thanks Leslie earlier for just a brief update on the environment subgroup. Just to let you know that the community engagement subgroup, we're working closely with the community partnership team. They brought in a few £1,000s in funding to carry out some place standard mapping across the whole of Fertisset, so the whole of the Shorts community board area. They're going to be organising some community-based face-to-face events to look at mapping local spaces and what people are wanting to get out of them. That won't just be in Shorts, there will be a main event in Shorts, but there'll also be, I think, piggybacking on some events that are going to be going on in Salisbury and in Harthill and in Hartwood. So that will be happening over the next few months with the community engagement subgroup, and the subgroup are leading that with council officer support. The community engagement subgroup are also going to take the remit on for looking at PB for the Shorts Community Board, how that might work, if it will indeed work for the LDP, and if so, what sort of shape that takes. So those discussions will start happening over the next few weeks about looking to try and shape a potential PB model that works for Shorts. Bearing in mind our budget next year is going to be £64,000, so it's not a massive pot of money to start with. The other thing that was mentioned earlier, I've just got a wee note, I think it might have been Leslie that said about the town subgroup to start again. I actually had a note just to say that we will look to start all of the subgroups now on a kind of regular basis after this board meeting and get them going. I think it will be useful to have the subgroups on a more regular basis. I think each group can decide how often they meet, but even meeting potentially 4 weekly or something, so that that engagement, that conversation keeps going. We're not just leaving it once between every board meeting. So I think I'll leave it at that just now, Chair, if that's okay, but I'm happy to pick up any questions on the LOIP or the subgroups.
No, that's brilliant. Thanks. Louise, do you want to come in?
Are we on the any other business now, or?
No, sorry, we just finished up with the LOIP there. I was just giving an update on that, but no, that's good. We're getting all the subgroups back up and running, but we'll move on to other areas of business. Leanne's got a few updates regarding community board self-evaluation, community concordate, and I know you were wanting to put in as well about the Queen's Jubilee. So
yeah,
you know that now, Leanne, and then
no bother.
Get some questions for Leanne, and then I'll let Ross do a final update on Green Space PB.
I'll be very, very brief, Chair. These are just items that we feel that the community boards need to have sight of and know about, but we will be sharing further more detail over the coming kind of weeks. So it was really just to highlight these items to you and to kind of keep an eye out for further information. So the first one is around community board self-assessment. So as part of the governance for community planning, which the community boards are part of in North Lanarkshire, it was recommended by Audit Scotland through the Council's kind of best value process that took place a wee while ago, that self-evaluation for local community planning, which is the community boards, and community empowerment should be undertaken. So the Improvement Service have, due to their developing role, shown an interest in working with the community boards around self-evaluation at some point potentially this year. And they could potentially want to start to discuss the process, not start the process necessarily, but start to discuss the process in the coming months, maybe even before the summer. So further discussion will take place with the community boards as more information becomes available around what the proposed approach may be and the format. But given the timing of the board meetings and the upcoming elections, we just wanted to make sure that the boards are aware, just in case there's any kind of approach by council officers or the Improvement Service over the next kind of few months. But I just wanted to highlight it just to you. We wouldn't start anything without the consent of the boards and without you know, agreeing with the process it would be with you, but I just didn't want it to get to the next cycle of meetings and it feels like we're kind of springing something on you. So just to note that will be taking place. The second thing is the development of the community concordat. So I can share a link. Ross will share a link across the community board if you want. But basically at the Council's Community Empowerment Committee in January, there was a proposal approved for Van Eyll to lead on with local community organisations to lead in stakeholder and community engagement with the aim of developing a community concordat, or I prefer the word agreement, but a kind of agreement. The idea is that the building on the engagement that's took place to date through the development of the LOIPs, there will be a focus on equalities groups and seldom heard voices to inform the development of an agreement between community planning partners and local communities around how we will work together, how we'll agree expectations and standards across the partnership, all with Amy, you know, support and delivery of the LOIPs. Building on previous discussions with partners, there is a report on Mars, as I said, and we can share the link, and that provides an overview of the proposed North Lanarkshire approach. It's linked to ongoing actions to ensure that the development of the partnership approaches, because remembering that the community boards are part of the community planning process, they're a partnership across public sector agencies with communities for the delivery of LOIPs. And support the development of community boards. Van Eyll will work closely with partners and communities over the coming months to engage, develop and implement the process in the next wee while. And again, further information will be circulated on the process, and I'll make sure that we share the link to the report on Mars that gives you a bit more detail. But ultimately it's about relationships and you know, having those things in place that help us and support the work that we are doing on the ground, you know, that help to hold us all to account in terms of how we work with communities. The last thing that I wanted to raise, and I think it was mentioned earlier, was around the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. The Council's budget for 2022-23, part of that process, there has been approval for funding to support community activity relating to, it's getting too late for me, relating to the celebration of the Jubilee, and further information relating to that will be made available ASAP, probably within the next week or so. However, just to highlight to you, there will be grant funding available, which will allow community groups to make applications for funding to support local events related to the celebrations. We will get information out regarding the criteria over the next few weeks. That will kind of sit within our team, the process for supporting that. And we'll get the information out as quickly as we can. What we would welcome, I suppose, is that community organisations work together in the community board areas to kind of coordinate activity. And what we'll do over the next few weeks when we're sending out information on the process for application and the information around, you know, how much is available, etc. We will share information on what the council's already planning, because there's already been approval for some kind of activity linked to schools and other things. So we will share that to make sure that there's no duplication, so that community groups can kind of look at what they can do in addition to that. But we would welcome groups kind of working together to try and kind of coordinate and try not to have kind of duplication of activity and make best use of the resources that will be available. That's all I had to say, Craig. Happy to take any comments or questions, but further information will definitely be circulated on those 3 items over the next few weeks.
Thanks, Leanne. I don't know, Ross, do you just want to update us with green PB in there as well, and then we can take questions on the lot of it, because that'll be us wrapped up after that.
No problem, Chair. I'll just finish off quickly. This is quite a nice one. Just to let you know that North Lanarkshire Council Green Space team are interested in finding out what projects local communities think would help nature recover. They intend to spend £50,000 on practical improvements across the North Lanarkshire Council area in years 2022 to 2023. Local communities will be invited to suggest improvements they'd like to see, and that could be general areas such as plant more wildflowers to help bees thrive, or specific improvements such as put up bird boxes and stain garden. So it can either be quite a general thing that you think would help, or a very specific local thing. All suggestions should relate to land that NLC owns and operates, and it should directly help nature recover. Suggestions will be checked out to make sure they are practical by trained ecologists and council staff. Then all suitable projects will be brought back out to the community, and you'll be able to vote on them. Everyone will be encouraged to make their voices heard and decide what improvements they want to see happen in their local areas. The winning projects will be delivered by NLC staff, but there's likely to be opportunities for people to volunteer and get involved on the ground. When it's launched next year, obviously we'll bring that back to the board, and hopefully everyone will be able to spread the information for that through their own networks. I'll send out the information about that, as well as an email address that people can contact if they get any questions around the PB exercise or exactly what's involved in it. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Ross. I'm sure with the environmental subgroup that will look at. So in terms of coming in for questions, Louise, I'll let you come in now. You're on mute.
Sorry, I'm saying, are we now on agenda item 11? Any other business?
Yep, we've just went through all that.
Okay, thank you. So there are 2 things I wanted to bring up this evening. The first thing was actually the creation of a new subgroup via the community board, specifically related, bear with me, to the leisure and fitness facilities in Shotts. To surmise, there have been a recent spike, and well, actually it's like a long-term trend, but a recent spike in classes being cancelled and not rescheduled. And I know that a number of the patrons of the Leisure Centre are concerned about that and actually want to work with NL Leisure to come up with a solution to that. So I would like to create a subgroup via the community board to try and address that problem. And then the second topic, or the second point I wanted to raise this evening, is that so I'm here tonight on the community board as a member of the community, but I also run a local Facebook page called Planning Applications in Shotts. And it's just to say that ahead of the local elections in May, I've organised a hustings on Wednesday the 20th of April. The hustings is for all local election candidates. And it's basically given all the candidates the opportunity to say why they're standing and what they hope to achieve if elected. And it will also give the local community the chance to ask the candidates questions on issues that are important to them. I'm happy to share the details in the chat bar, but for anyone who can't see it, it will take place on Wednesday the 20th of April between 7 and 9 o'clock in the evening, and the location is Calderhead High School in Shotts.
Thanks for that, Louise. That's brilliant. If we get that information shared with everybody, that'd be great. Leanne, would you like to come in?
Yeah, it was just in relation to the request for an additional subgroup. I think we just need to be a bit careful about subgroups. We could potentially have subgroups for every topic, and I know that it's an important issue for communities, but I think really the idea of the subgroups is that they should be supporting delivery of the agreed LOIC priorities that reflect what was discussed and agreed through the engagement process, and how we, what informed what those LOIC priorities are. And obviously there's a few kind of additional ones that have been added due to discussion at the community board. I just think we need to be careful. We're potentially in danger of creating, subgroups and kind of priorities to focus on when actually we've done quite a lot of engagement. So I'm not suggesting for a minute that's not an issue for the local community, we don't need to do anything, but I just think we just need to be careful about creating subgroups as the kind of first kind of action. I think there's other things that we can do. So I think, you know, maybe a one-off kind of discussion or session with some of our colleagues from active and creative communities, or maybe just an outline of what some of the issues and challenges are, because if they're specifically related to users of the leisure facilities, I'm sure that the active and creative communities would be really keen to be involved in that discussion and to address those issues. And while it's important that they're highlighted at the community board if it's an issue for local people, I just think we need to maybe, you know, if they're able to respond, if active and creative communities are able to respond to those concerns and deliver some action that improves things, or to support local residents to reach out to the wider community to address issues, etc., then I think that's a great thing. I'm just conscious of subgroups as you know, kind of jumping to subgroups. I think we just need to be careful that we've not make sure that we're kind of looking at all of the options available before that we do that. But obviously that's not my place to say that. But you know, to say whether we do or don't need a subgroup, I think we just need to think through the kind of the purpose of the subgroups. That was all I wanted to say, but happy, I think maybe a discussion kind of
Leanne, Leanne, I appreciate that. I am not in the habit of creating work that doesn't need to exist. I'm not in the habit of having meetings for the sake of meetings. Members of the community have raised concerns about the volume of classes being held at Shotts Leisure Centre in comparison to other leisure centres or other sports facilities across the county. So, you know, it's the local community or members of the local community who are driving this. I don't know what active communities can do. I know that this has been raised with NL Leisure directly, but there hasn't been any feedback on that.
Sorry, Louise, just to clarify, active and creative communities is what was NL Leisure. So active and creative communities is the merge between Culture and Leisure NL and NL Leisure that's now back within the council. So there are clearly officers that we can link with to look at some of the challenges. If you were able to give us some more detail and some information about the specifics of that, we can pick that up with colleagues. It just feels that it's a very specific issue that they potentially would want to hear about, and that they might have ideas for what, you know, might be already doing things to kind of look at that. So I think it might be worth a slightly separate chat just to look at what we can do in the short term, and then look at if there is a need for anything kind of longer term.
I'm always happy to have a chat. I know that this has been raised with the head of NL Leisure, Stephen Miller. You know, the management of Shotts Leisure Centre are aware of the concerns also. But it's one thing to be aware of the concerns, but but we still find ourselves in the position that everybody pays their subscription every month. Classes are being cut. There are challenges related to COVID, but those are now dissipated, and other challenges are presenting themselves. So I just thought that perhaps creating a subgroup, and again, I'm not in the habit of creating work or groups or meetings that don't need to exist. But I thought that might at least be a starting point in terms of engaging and trying to come up with a solution.
Yep, that's fine. If you want to send us some further information, we can look at what the kind of best way forward, because it is a very specific group of people who are using that particular service. So, you know, I think we do need to pick it up as a kind of service matter in the first instance, and give them the opportunity to.
The whole of the community use the leisure centre. But listen, I am more than happy to pick up with you off
absolutely
the call. Again, I'm not in the habit of creating work that doesn't need to exist. So if there's a fast track way to kind of get that engagement and come up with like a long-term solution, then I'm very much for that. Thank you.
Brilliant. Stephen, do you want to come in? And then Leslie?
Yeah, it was just really very briefly on that, Chair, and it was just to say to Louise that Heather Liddell's actually Stephen Miller's boss, and we can, between myself and Leanne, we can facilitate a quick meeting. I'm disappointed, I've got to say, if you have not had any feedback, and obviously you've raised these issues and you're saying you're not actually getting any feedback. And again, that's what hopefully I can influence that to make sure when you get the feedback, until you get some answers to what you're looking for. You said yourself, it's been a really difficult time. But again, as restrictions have been lifted just now, we need to know what the thoughts are in terms of making sure these classes take place. Is there an issue with certain services we're delivering across Ravenscraig, for instance, is still a vaccination centre and it's only kind of half open. So there's lots of stuff going on in that sector. But I suppose all I want to say tonight is I'm happy to use my influence to get you that kind of quick meeting to hopefully what we're trying, so you don't need to have a subgroup, that we want to fix the issues and find out what's happening, get it fixed and get the services up and running. And if we can do that quickly, we're more than happy to do that.
That's music to my ears, Stephen. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stephen. Finally, just Leslie, you want to come in?
Yeah, it was just to thank Louise for raising this, because actually what jumped to my mind at the same time when we were talking about the leisure centre was the children in shots frequently miss out on school holiday activities that are hosted by NL Leisure. So this is a pre-COVID thing as well. It's not just to do with COVID, but just in the last week, the My Shots Facebook page advertised Easter camps that are going to be available for children across North Lanarkshire. And yet again, there's nothing at the Shots venue. I did actually tag our councillors in that post to see whether they would be able to maybe take some of the concerns forward around that. But I've not heard from them yet. So perhaps Leanne, if there's and Stephen, if there's another route that's going to help for Louise to be able to have discussion, then maybe that could be raised at the same time.
We do have the 365 as well, Leslie. A lot of, I don't know if we've got that as well. It's obviously being delivered at the Health 11, so that took away from a lot of the stuff NL Leisure delivering.
Which is great. The 365 is great, and I have used it myself, Craig. And I'd praise everyone that's involved in it, but it's not equal, because what NL camps are offering is kind of 9 till 3 activities. So in terms of working parents like myself who are maybe looking for childcare and also obviously learning and physical activity for children, it's not the same. You can't, obviously GBT is a sort of shorter part of the day. So thanks.
No worries. So I think that's us get through everything we've done. Not too bad for time this meeting. We're getting better. In terms of the next meeting, obviously we've got the election coming up. So I think it's the date and time of the next meeting's yet to be confirmed, but I think we're likely for June. The next meeting, the stuff that's going on. So that'll be getting sent out as soon as we've got a date for that. But is them to get final questions of that, or are we happy to go? All good. Thanks. Right ahead. But if nobody's got any other questions, or they can always send their stuff out to Community Matters. But I will get the date and time of the next meeting out as soon as possible, but likely June. But other than that, thanks everybody for coming along and for over 2 and a bit hours of your time. So much appreciated.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks.